Are we in a housing bubble? With all the headlines, the buzz, and the media, consumers may believe the market's in a housing bubble. And as the housing market shifts, you may be wondering for yourself what's going to happen next. It's only natural for these concerns to creep up and leave you wondering if we could repeat what took place in 2008 and have a housing crash. The good news is there's concrete data that shows why nothing like this will happen. And let's get started and point it out. The question you'd likely want to know is there a shortage of homes on the market today or a surplus? The inventory needed to sustain a normal real estate market is approximately 6 months. Anything more than that is an overabundance and will cause prices to depreciate. Anything less than that is a shortage and will lead to a continued price appreciation. Let's have a look at some of the historical data and we can see the differences between supply and inventory and where the shortage is available. This graph uses the data from the National Association of Realtors to show how this time compares to the crash of 2008. Today, unsold inventory sits around a 3-month supply at the current sales pace. One of the reasons inventory is still low is because of sustained underbuilding. When you couple that with ongoing buyer demand as millennials age into their peak home buying years, it continues to put upward pressure on home prices. That limited supply compared to buyer demand is why the experts forecast home prices won't fall this time. During the lead up to the housing crisis, it was much easier to get a home loan than it is today. Mortgage standards are a lot stricter than they were during the crash. This graph showcases the Mortgage Credit Availability Index from the Mortgage Bankers Association. The higher the number, the easier it is to get a mortgage. As you can see, the run-up to 2006, banks were creating artificial demand by lowering lending standards and making it easy for just about anyone to qualify for a home loan or refinance their current home. Back then, lending institutions took on much greater risk in both the person and the mortgage products that they offered. That led to a mass default of foreclosures and falling prices. Today, things are much different and purchasers are far more qualified to meet the higher standards of mortgage companies. Mark Fleming came out and quoted that the credit standards tightened in recent months due to increase in economic uncertainty and monetary policy tightening. Stricter standards like there are today help prevent a risk of rash foreclosures like there was in the last crash. The foreclosure volume is nothing like it was during 2008 of the crash. The most obvious difference is the number of homeowners that were facing foreclosure after the housing bubble burst. Foreclosure activity has been on the way down since the crash because buyers today are more qualified and less likely to default on their loans. This graph helps explain that story. To explain this further, if you're doubting those numbers, the New York Fed Consumer Credit Panel put together a report and they quoted the median credit score of newly originated mortgages declined, but it still remained around 773, which was down from the 788 level, which reflects a very high lending standard. In addition, today's homeowners are equity rich, they're not tapped out. In the run-up to the housing bubble, some homeowners were using their homes as personal ATMs. Many immediately withdrew their equity once it built up. When home values began to fall, some homeowners found themselves in a negative equity situation where the amount they owed on the mortgage was greater than the value of the home. Some of those households decided to walk away from their homes, and that led to a wave of distressed property listings, foreclosures, and other short sales, which had those homes selling at considerable discounts that lowered the value of the homes in the area. Today, prices have risen nicely over the last few years, and that's given homeowners an equity boost. According to Black Knight, in total, mortgage holders gained $2.8 trillion tappable equity over the past 12 months. That's a 34% increase that equates to more than 207,000 equity available per borrower. So with the average home equity now standing at over 207,000, homeowners are in a completely different position this time around than they were in the 2008 crash. The bottom line is, if you're worried we're making the same mistakes that led to the housing crash, the graphs that I showed you should help alleviate your concerns, and the concrete data and the expert insight should help you understand that we're clearly in a time that is nothing like last time. So if you're ready to buy a home, now may be the moment you've been waiting for. Let's connect and start the home buying process today. If you've got something you'd like to sell, let's also connect. We can do a few different things on the property and make sure you get top dollar out of this marketplace.
What are you waiting for? To receive your tips on the home buying process in Delray Beach, give Ask Realty Pro a call today at 561-564-0499. We look forward to speaking.